Hey everybody, what's going on? Ash here with some brief off-the-cuff impressions of the Nintendo Labo VR Kit. So basically, Andre and I got to fly to New York earlier this week to get some hands-on time with the VR Kit, but we weren't able to get good gameplay footage while we were there. Thankfully, Nintendo just sent us some direct feed footage of some of the games and experiences you can expect to find in the VR Kit, so we thought that I would record this quick impressions discussion so that we could run some of that footage for you. Just bear in mind that these are very surface-level impressions. If you want more in-depth impressions, make sure to check out my and Andre's full-length discussion, which is already available on the channel, where we go really into the nitty-gritty of each VR Toy-Con, as well as some of the VR Plaza games that you can expect to find in the final product. With that said, let's jump right in, and yeah, let's just start right off with the VR Blaster, or sorry, the Toy-Con Blaster, because that is by far my favorite part of the main Toy-Con for the VR Kit, and it's really immersive. You've got this really cool bazooka-type gun that kind of reminds me of the Super Scope 6, but instead, you don't hold it over your shoulder. It's more of like a pump-action shotgun, so you have this slide, and you slide it, and then you pull the trigger, and you get this really, really impressive tactile feedback. And game-wise, you're in this city that's being invaded by aliens, and you're attacking these aliens with what seems like Splatoon-like paintballs, and it's just really cool. It's kind of an on-rail shooter, almost like Virtua Cop or Lethal Enforcers. Really neat. One of my favorite things about it, and perhaps one of my favorite things about the whole event, was that you can flip the Joy-Con on the side of the blaster to freeze time, and then fire a lot of bullets which stay in place in front of you. And then when you flip the Joy-Con back up, all the bullets go to their destinations at once, kind of like bullet time being activated. And you get this chorus of explosions and enemies being defeated, and it is awesome. Moving on to the stuff like the wind pedal, and this is kind of where the possible weakness of Labo VR starts to creep in. Is that the wind pedal itself is really cool, because when you press down on it, you get this burst of air that feels really convincing. But the game you play with it, it's very limited. You're this frog, and you have to jump over projectiles that are being fired at you. And again, when you jump, it feels really cool because you get that burst of air, but there's not really much to it. And this is the same problem we've had with other Labo games, where the physical component, what you build, is really cool and really intuitive and just really impressive, but then there isn't much depth to the actual gameplay experiences, and that's a possible pitfall here. But I have to really clearly state, the whole event was barely an hour, so Andre and I got maybe a few minutes, if that, with each game. So take these impressions with a grain of salt, but I did get the sense that there isn't much depth with a lot of these games, other than perhaps the Blaster game. Another good example of that, the camera game. The camera itself is really cool because you can turn the lens and it clicks back and forth to zoom in and zoom out, and that's really neat. But the game itself, you're just taking pictures of fish and other background objects that you can find. So it's not really that interesting, unfortunately, and that kind of extends to the bird Toy-Con as well. Again, using the Toy-Con to flap the bird's wings is really neat as you gain altitude in the virtual space that you're in. But there isn't much to it other than completing the objectives, and that's they're not that in depth. So again, I feel like you're going to have that gee-whiz experience where you get the physical feedback and it's really neat, but I don't know how long you'll necessarily be playing these games. There's also the elephant, which was kind of cool, because that was probably one of my other favorite ones, because you can draw in a 3D space using the elephant's trunk. And it's really cool because not only can you draw, you can grab and manipulate the things that you draw and move them around in the space. So that's really cool from a technical standpoint. And yeah, I just thought that was really neat. So yeah, that's kind of my surface level impressions of the 5 main games, but there's also the VR Plaza, which comes with 64 other experiences that you can, kind of mini games that you can check out. And what's cool about these is that they can sometimes be full-fledged games. Like there's a platformer, like a whole 2D platformer that you can play, where you guide this little character through a 2D course that has 3D obstacles. And it's really cool. The controls are pretty good. And, there are 64 of these, and not all of them are going to be that in-depth, but what's neat about them is that they work in concert with the Labo VR Garage, where you can look in the back end to see how all these games have been put together, and then you can iterate on them, you can kind of tweak them to your liking, or you can use that knowledge to create your own games from scratch. So you still get that element of software creation from Labo VR, and I think that's really cool, and it looks like it's going to work really well. So if you're the creative building type, I do think you're going to get possibly a lot out of this. The last thing I would say is that I went into this expecting entry-level VR, and what I got was something above that, because you get that physical component that you don't get with kind of like phone makeshift VR, stuff like that. So I am running out of time for this discussion, so thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on social media using the links in the video description below. Otherwise, keep it on GameXplain for more on the Nintendo Labo VR Kit and all things gaming. Until next time, guys, bye!